Well, hey there, guys. Greetings and salutations, and we are back. Welcome to Open Mic here. Open Mic is a very simple and easy to understand concept. You guys dictate what it is we talk about, and you send in questions for our show by simply going to the Stream Elements tip link at streamelements.com/John Campea/tip, and you'll see your question read on the show or in an upcoming show. Now, I'm going to let you guys know if you've sent in a question more than, say, or less than like 2 hours ago, you may not see it on today's show. It's probably going to be saved for tomorrow's, but we're going to get through all the questions that you guys have sent in if we deem the question to be appropriate to be read on the show. And then after that, if we still have some time, we're going to open up the super chats and hear from you guys live. And hello to everybody who's already here on this Saturday. Yeah, my vacation is officially over. Yesterday was the official final day of my vacation. Back to it. Although it's a very personally busy weekend for me. It is my wife Anne's birthday weekend. So yesterday, her official birthday is tomorrow. But Friday, we kicked off the birthday celebrations by going out to our favorite restaurant in Burbank, California. And then today, we are having a big party. So a lot of friends and family are coming over tonight to celebrate Anne. And then tomorrow, what Anne wanted for her birthday was tickets to WrestleMania. So for Anne's birthday tomorrow, we are going to WrestleMania for her birthday. That's what she wanted. She got this great shirt that says, "Acknowledge me, it's my birthday." I assume, I've heard that "acknowledge me" is Roman Reigns saying. So she's got "acknowledge me, it is my birthday." And somebody's asking, did I see that Nigel McGuinness is back in Ring of Honor? I was actually supposed to go see Nigel. For those of you who don't know, Nigel is a friend of ours, but he's been dating Corey for a really long time. I was supposed to go see him on Thursday night, and last second thing came up and I couldn't go, which really, really sucked. But anyway, how you doing, guys? Good to be back. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start off talking about a little bit about Dungeons & Dragons and what we can expect from the box office of it this weekend. Then we're going to go into your questions that you guys have sent in. We'll take a little bit of a break for our Mint Mobile sponsor, and then we'll come back and do some super chats. Sound good? Great. All right. Now, before we get into the questions you guys sent in, like I said, let's talk a little bit of Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons is opening this weekend. Now, about a year and a half ago when I heard they were making a Dungeons & Dragons movie, I was like a lot of people in thinking that why are you making another? I mean, I love Dungeons and Dragons, but honestly, I was like, why? Wow. Mark 24 Gaming just gifted a membership. Thank you, Mark. This is incredibly generous of you, man. But I was like, why are you doing it? The last one had such a stench on it. I don't think a lot of people are really interested in a Dungeons and Dragons movie. But then the trailer started to come out, right? And I thought, the trailers looked really fun. I mean, I was surprised. I was totally surprised that I thought they looked good, but I thought these things look like they're really charming and have a lot of fun, and it feels like you're playing a game of Dungeons & Dragons. So anyway, then I went to go see the movie a week or two ago. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Of course, we have our out of the theater reaction up and online, so you can see that there. But we absolutely loved the film. Couldn't believe it. Now, I still didn't know how it would do. I was thinking maybe around 30 million, because honestly, despite the fact that it's great, I don't think anybody had much interest in it. So anyway, right now they're saying that by the time the box office weekend actual report comes out, they're saying that Dungeons & Dragons could make $40 million opening weekend, which is more than I thought it could. Now, whether or not it actually does come in at $40 million, we'll have to wait and see. But it could be that word of mouth got out about this thing, because the ratings on this movie are great. Look at this. 91% critic rating, 93% audience rating. I mean, the response to the movie has been fantastic, and it totally deserves it. Now, again, I said this before, I'll say it again. I don't think Dungeons & Dragons is going to end up in my top 10 of 2023 list, but it's a really damn good time. Really good time. So let's put this into some perspective. If Dungeons & Dragons actually ends up making 40 million opening weekend, and it could make a little bit less, could make a little bit more, how does that compare to the other movies that have come out this past month or so? How would that 40 million compare? Well, let's go over and take a peek at this. So obviously a lot less than John Wick Chapter 4. I mean, John Wick Chapter 4, we all knew that was going to be kind of the March juggernaut. It had an opening weekend of $73 million, which I believe is a franchise record. So then Shazam Fury of the Gods, it opened with $30 million. If you had told me 6 months ago that Dungeons and Dragons would open bigger than Shazam Fury of the Gods, I would have thought you were a little bit crazy. Now, I wasn't expecting Shazam Fury of the Gods to be a massive blockbuster. The first one only made a limited amount of money. But still, I would have thought for sure that Shazam Fury of the Gods would make more than Dungeons and Dragons. So it's better than it's better than Fury of the Gods. It looks like it's going to come in roughly around what Scream 6 made its opening weekend. Scream 6 made 44. Scream or Dungeons & Dragons could hit 44. So it's coming in right around there. And of course, 44 was a franchise record opening weekend for the Scream franchise as well. Creed had another franchise record opening. You had 3 movies in March that all set franchise records for opening weekend. John Wick 4, Creed 3, Scream 6. So good for all of them. Of course, Creed 3 made $58 million, so it's not going to come, really relatively close to Creed. Obviously, it did much better than 65 did. 65 only made 12. You know what? In 65, I don't care what anybody says. 65 was fun. I had a good time at 65. I don't care what anybody else says. There you go. But it did not do well, made $12 million. So Dungeons & Dragons did significantly better than that. Ant-Man and the Wasp made a little over 100, like $105, $106 million. Cocaine Bear made 23, so Dungeons & Dragons did pretty well compared to that. So if Dungeons & Dragons does indeed come in around that $40 million mark opening weekend, number one, that's more than I thought it could have made. But that would put it as a significantly better performance opening weekend than Shazam Fury of the Gods, roughly on par with Scream 6, quite behind Creed 3, much bigger than 65, much higher than Cocaine Bear. So, I mean, honestly, if this thing comes in at $40 million, number one, it deserved more. Dungeons & Dragons deserved more. But, I mean, it's more than I thought it would have, and its opening weekend numbers are comparing pretty good. So not bad for them. And honestly, I hope they look at this and say, hey, this overperformed what a lot of people thought it would do. This could be the beginning of a new franchise. I certainly hope it is, because I had a blast with this movie. Had an absolute blast with it. And I think when you look at the numbers, 91% critic rating, 93% audience rating, people are responding to it. People are enjoying it. I hope the word of mouth continues. I foresee a less than 50% drop for next weekend. Less than 50% drop for next weekend. Whether that holds up or not, we'll find out. But we'll see. Anyway, those are my thoughts, guys, on what we've been seeing and what we've got here from Dungeons and Dragons. Have you guys seen it? If so, what did you think about it? Go ahead and leave your comments below. All right. With that down, guys, let's jump in and start taking your questions that you guys have been sending in, for a bit. We need to get caught up on some of them because we've been on vacation for a week. So let's go on over and start taking some questions here. We're going to start off here with Shaquille Oatmeal. I love that username. Writes, what are your thoughts on marketing for these superheroes movies coming out recently and how much they're giving away in the trailers and TV spots? Like for Shazam 2, showing something from the post-credit scene in a TV spot. When does it become spoilers? All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, Shaquille. This is a question that gets brought up a lot and has for years. I mean, people are always asking how much is too much in a trailer. Now I don't know if you knew this, I made a full-length feature documentary called Movie Trailers, A Love Story. And we talked to one of the preeminent Hollywood trailer houses, like one of the premier companies that makes trailers for the Hollywood studios. And we talked to them about that very question in the documentary, like, who decides and where do you draw the line? Like, how much is too much? And one of the things they talked to us about was the fact that it's very difficult to try to figure out that line because, number one, the job of a trailer is to sell the movie. It's to get you to buy tickets, right? That's the job of a trailer. A trailer is a corporately produced piece of propaganda designed to get us to give them our money. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that is what a trailer is. A trailer is a corporately produced piece of propaganda meant to entice us to give that corporation our money. I mean, that's what advertising is, right? And trailers are advertising. So where does that line get drawn between doing an effective job of selling the movie and getting people to come, but not wanting to give too much away? It's a fine balancing line, because I believe there are certain things that trailers do need to give us, right? They should give us the tone of the film. A trailer should give us a basic idea about what the story of the movie is. Because honestly, nothing turns me off a movie more than watching a bunch of trailers and going, I have no idea what that movie's about. Why would I go to it? I've watched 3 trailers for that movie. I couldn't tell you at all what the movie's even remotely about. Right? So they've got to figure out a way to do that. Now, with something like Shazam, that's where it gets tricky, because look, I'm about to give a little bit of a spoiler for Shazam, but you all know it now because it's in the TV commercials now. So Wonder Woman pops up in it, right? Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman pops up in it. Now, here's the predicament that they found themselves in over at Warner Brothers Marketing, was that Shazam! Fury of the Gods was tracking really low. And they were hoping the closer they got to the release date, that the numbers would start to turn up, that maybe word of mouth, because early reactions came out, they sounded pretty good, whatever, but not everybody was loving it. And so that word of mouth swell of momentum never materialized. And as they got to opening weekend, they were like, people are not buying tickets to the movie. Well, what do? You got to pull out all the stops to try to sell more tickets if you can. Listen, the exact same thing happened with Black Adam, right? As they were getting closer and closer to Black Adam coming out and realize we're not selling tickets. The advanced ticket sales are modest at best. It doesn't look like opening weekend is tracking well, all that kind of stuff. And so what do? Well, Henry Cavill pops up in it. Maybe we should start dropping more hints that Henry Cavill's in it. So Rock starts talking more about Henry Cavill. And then in the days leading up to it, they just straight out came out and said, Henry Cavill's back as Superman, right? And I guarantee you, they would not have done that if the advanced ticket sales and if the tracking for Black Adam were really high. If the advanced ticket sales and the tracking for Black Adam were strong, they would never have dropped that Henry Cavill pops up in it. They would have left that to the rest of us to speculate about. If Shazam had advanced sold tickets well and had strong tracking, they never would have dropped a trailer with Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman in it. They never would have done it. So look, you asked the question, when does it become spoilers, right? That's an interesting question, and my opinion on it is kind of different from most people's, but I stand by it. To me, something is not an actual spoiler. I think people overuse the word spoiler a lot. So there's this scene in the movie where 2 people are having dinner. Spoiler! Right? I mean, I think people throw the term spoiler around way too loosely. To me, a spoiler is a piece of information that literally alters your viewing experience of the movie, right? You've probably heard me say that before. It's not, oh yeah, there's this one scene where these 2 guys get into a fight. No, right? A spoiler to me is something that fundamentally and seismically shifts and alters your very viewing experience of the movie as a whole. And the one I like to use as a great example for that is Sixth Sense. Sixth Sense is a 20-plus-year-old movie. If you don't know it by now, you've never had any interest in watching it. So I'm about to spoil it huge. But, Bruce Willis is dead the whole time. If you know that piece of information going into the movie, that one piece of information fundamentally changes your entire viewing experience of the movie, right? If you go into that movie knowing that Bruce Willis is dead the whole time, your very experience of the movie in its totality is completely shifted. That is a spoiler. Finding out there is a car chase is not a spoiler. To me, somebody popping up as a random, not story impacting cameo going, hey guys, I'm here. And then just, to me, that's not a spoiler. I mean, do you want to find out all the little surprises? No. But does finding out that I'm going to make something up, just totally going to make something up. Let's say Vin Diesel pops up in Dungeons and Dragons and says, where's the real treasure? And Vin Diesel sticks his head in. The real treasure is family. And ducks out. And right? Okay, yeah, that would be a nice surprise. By the way, that does not happen in Dungeons and Dragons. That would be a nice surprise. But if you found out about that, it does not change the way you watch the movie at all. So I don't know. the real treasure is family. Anyway, I don't know why I said that. So so look, I'm all for marketing your film. I'm all for, you know what movie put out more trailers and all that and TV spots and spent more on advertising than any other film ever? Avengers Endgame. And that worked out pretty well for Avengers, right? Worked out pretty well. So I don't mind studios doing a lot, and I don't mind studios doing what they feel they need to do to sell tickets. What I just don't want them to do is to legitimately spoil a movie where they literally telling us like everything that happens and how this movie resolves, giving us information that fundamentally changes the way we watch the whole movie in its entirety. That would be disappointing. That would be disappointing. Anyway, all right. I spent way too much time on that one question. Sorry about that, guys. Let's move on. All right. Stubble McShave writes, Blockbusters have been an app for VOD renting and purchasing here in Sweden for a while now. I haven't used it. It's got pretty low user reviews. It will launch in the US soon. For some reason, I always thought there was some kind of Blockbuster app. I could be right. I could be wrong about that. Of course, this all came from a story we did, a couple weeks ago, where in case you missed it, Blockbuster, if you go to blockbuster.com, they've now got a message up saying, be patient with us as we start to rewind or something silly. Actually, what happens if I do go there? Hold a second. I'm going to go over to, hold a second. I'm going to go to blockbuster.com. Is anything, okay. So here's what they're giving us right now is Blockbuster. We are working on rewinding your movie. And we speculated a little bit last week about that. I mean, like, what does that mean? Are they actually going to try to make a return of the home video store? I doubt that. But are they going to try to make some kind of return with a shift in their business practice? I mean, I have no idea. Or is it just fun? Maybe it's just fun. It's probably just something they're doing for fun. All right. Let's see. Next up here, we've got Alex Pitt, who writes, hey, John, when you were doing your June box office predictions, you missed Pixar's Elemental, which is opening on the same day as The Flash. No, we didn't miss it. What happened was when I was going, and I'm going to look it up here right now, when I was going through the release calendar, and I'm going to see if I can find this here. I'm going to go to April. I believe we usually don't talk about movies that are opening in limited release. And I believe, as we go over to June's release dates, Ryan's Boogeyman, Transformers, Strays, where did it go? There it is, Elemental. And you only see the first couple of letters of it here. But here it says limited. Now that usually means that there will be a wider release coming later. Now, it could be that Box Office Mojo's release calendar here is wrong and that maybe June 16th is the full wide release. But according to Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures info, they are calling the June 16th right now. I mean, I'm just going by the information that I have in front of me, okay? It could be right, it could be wrong. I'm just saying it's currently listed as limited. I have no insider information one way or other to either confirm or disprove that information. I'm just saying the official listing right now has it as limited release on the 16th. So I'm not really sure. So because I was not sure, when we did our June rundown, I opted not to include Elemental because I'm very much looking forward to that movie. I thought the trailer looked great because it was listed as limited. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see how it kind of works out. Okay. Where are we at here? We are now at, that was Alex Pitt. Thanks for that, Alex. Logan writes, could Disney be sued for misleading investors about Star Wars movie progress? No. The only time you have to be, if let's say you were wanting to bring a lawsuit for, in misleading or business practice, whatever, what they would have to do is prove that Disney knowingly misled investors. Look, so here's what would not fall under that category. If Disney thought, hey, we're making progress on this Kevin Feige movie, this Kevin Feige Star Wars movie we're working on, right? If Disney believes that we're making progress on that, and Disney believes this is something that's going to happen, and they let their investors know that, but then like 4 months later, they realize it can't happen, and then they pull the plug on it, they did not mislead their investors because they communicated information that they themselves thought was true. If you think something is the truth and you say what it is you believe is the truth, factually speaking, then you're not guilty of misleading anybody. So no, unless an angry Star Wars investor or Disney investor could prove that Disney knowingly knew the whole time that this isn't going to happen, this is going to happen, and they straight up lied to their investors. Unless that's the case, then no, they can't be sued for that, to the best of my knowledge. All right, good question, Logan. Next up, we've got the last Kryptonian who writes, love the portrayal of Bill Skarsgård in John Wick 4. I keep thinking, this is why I don't like people writing acronyms, because every time I see JW4, you guys know what I'm thinking, right? I think Jurassic World 4. I don't know why. Anyway, I love the portrayal of Bill Skarsgård in John Wick 4, but I think having a real French actor, maybe like Omar Sy, would have sounded better to my French-Canadian ears. And he's a big dude also. Could have had some cool fight scenes. Yeah, but here's the thing, Last Kryptonian. By the way, that's a great name. You don't change your script for who you have as your actor. I mean, that's just not a good idea. And also, my whole thing. I don't care that Bill Skarsgård isn't actually a Frenchman. I don't care. Actors play things that they are not. Actors pretend to be people that they are not in real life. I really don't care. All I care about is, did he deliver a good performance? That's all I care about. And whether he's actually French or not, you get somebody like, listen, I'm Italian. My name is Giovanni Bertano Campea II, son of Pasquale, son of Giovanni I, great nephew to Romolo, Sagarlo, Vincenzo, and Romolo, nephew to Pina, Leonora, Maria, and Susan. I'm as Italian as it gets. Other than the fact that I don't like spicy food. A big disappointment to my father that way. Anyway, does it really bother me that Chris Pratt, who is decidedly not Italian, I did some research. Chris Pratt is not Italian. Does it bother me at all that they went out and got somebody who is not Italian to do the voice of Mario? No. You know why? Because when they do a movie about World War II, I don't expect them to go out and find real life Nazis. Well, this guy is supposed to play this German general from the Second World War. Yeah, but the actor they got playing him is an American guy who believes in democracy. You can't have that. We got to go find real Nazis and put them in the movie, because only a real Nazi can play a Nazi in a movie. I don't believe in that. So while Omar Sy would have done a terrific job, no doubt about it, I loved Bill Skarsgård in the movie, and it didn't bother me at all that he was playing a Frenchman. It doesn't bother any more than it bothers me that English actors with the thickest British accents in the world will oftentimes play American characters. It doesn't bother me. Who cares? Actors are people who are pretending to be things they are not. So that's just my opinion of it. That's just my take on it. All right. Thanks, Last Kryptonian. Appreciate that, man. All right. Next up, Fanimator writes, Do you think The Flash has the potential to be a word-of-mouth driven box office success like Top Gun Maverick? I know the DC universe has lost people's interest, but the Batman was a hit, and even with competition, Maverick still made tons of money. Maverick didn't have a whole hell of a lot of competition, but that's not really super relevant. It is a huge success, no doubt. And the fact that it was just so well received and such great word of mouth, obviously fueled, no pun intended, jet fueled, it's rocketing ascension, no doubt. Could The Flash also be that word of mouth driven kind of box office success? The answer is yes, because every single movie that comes out has the potential to have the word of mouth driven box office success that Top Gun Maverick had. Not all of them will, very few of them will, but every movie that comes out has that potential. It's what go back all the way back. Go back to like My Big Fat Greek Wedding, right? That was a movie. By the way, did any of you see Big Fat Greek Wedding? That movie's magnificent. Anyway, go all the way back to My Big Fat Greek Wedding. That was a movie that has set the record for the most weeks in the top 10 at the box office while never hitting number one. My Big Fat Greek Wedding was never number one at the box office, but it stayed in the top 10 for a record length of time because of word of mouth, right? Word of mouth gets out there, starts spreading. It's what happened with Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's why it became the biggest box office success film that A24 has ever had. It's that word of mouth. Word of mouth. People start talking about it. It's what got Top Gun Maverick into $1.4 billion at the box office. Word of mouth, word of mouth, word of mouth. Every movie that comes out has that potential. Flash absolutely has that potential. Absolutely does. Especially if it's nearly as good as everybody is saying it is. I have talked to two individuals who have seen this movie, who freaked out, loved it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I will, doesn't necessarily mean you will, but these two individuals loved it. Okay, and I'm going to see it in 3 weeks. Me, Ann, Ray, Rob, and Chris Carr, we're hightailing it up to Las Vegas. Gonna go to CinemaCon. I booked all the hotel rooms last night. Finally got all the hotel rooms booked. The week went by and I was like, holy shit, I haven't booked the hotels yet. So I booked the hotels yesterday. But we're going to be going up there. We're going to watch Disney's presentation. We're going to watch Universal's 2-hour presentation. We're going to watch Sony's presentation. We're going to watch Paramount's presentation. We're going to watch Lionsgate's presentation. We're going to watch Warner Brothers' 2-hour presentation. And then we're going to be watching the movies The Boogeyman. Disney just confirmed they're going to show us The Boogeyman. Last 2 weeks ago, they confirmed that Joyride, I cannot wait to watch Joyride. They're going to screen Joyride for us a couple of months early, but what is most important to most people is that they are screening The Flash for us. And in 3 weeks, we're going to be sitting down and we're going to be watching The Flash. And listen, James Gunn says it's one of the best comic book movies ever made. Just because he thinks that doesn't mean I will or you will, but who knows? Who knows? Who knows? We'll find out. Totally, I was Italian. But yes. So yes, Flash has that potential, but it also has some obstacles to overcome. Remember, I say Warner Brothers, DC and Marvel are always cheer for each other's movies because the better their movies are and the more the audiences like it, the more likely they are to come back to the next comic book film. Well, the opposite is true of that as well. The last 3 comic book movies for a lot of people have been underwhelming. I personally really like Shazam 2, but a lot of people didn't. So you're looking at Black Adam, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Shazam 2. So not only is DC struggling with its perception right now, which is why they're rebooting everything in 2025 with Superman Legacy, but even if you throw Marvel into that, the quality of stuff lately hasn't been as high as it has been in years past. So DC has all the Ezra nonsense that it's got to deal with. It's got the general poor performance of DC films lately to deal with. It's got to deal with its less than stellar reputation. Listen, DCEU has not got the best quality reputation. And it's got to deal with the fact that comic book movies overall lately have not been all that good, therefore not really motivating a lot of people to come back to the theaters. It's got a lot of obstacles it's got to overcome. Can it? We'll find out. All right. Great question, Fanimator. Next one. We got Chad Burney. Writes, suggestion for monthly content, not that you need or ask for it. Top 3 favorite movies of the month and updated top 5 movies of the year to date. Love the show. Enjoy watching every day. Bring on the filthy. Well, you know what, Chad? It's funny that you write that in, because one of the things that I've been thinking about bringing back, just a little segment to do weekly. For those of you who remember back in the very earliest days after I left Collider and I started up the John Campea YouTube channel, one of the things I used to do every week was every Monday, I would do a top 5 power ranking, where what I would do is I would say, of all the movies that are still available wide release, like has to be in over 500 theaters still, right? Like, because to me, if a movie is still in 500 theaters, then that pretty much means if you wanted to go to a movie theater tonight to watch that movie, if it's in at least 500 theaters, that means it's probably playing somewhere within driving distance for you, right? So what I used to do was I would do the weekly top 5 power rankings. And I would say these are the rankings of the 5 best movies in order that are in theaters right now in at least 500 screens. Like, not movies that are still in 6 theaters, whatever, but movies that are still on at least 500 screens. So, damn, what would my power ranking right now look like? If I were to do a power ranking right now, and we look at the films that are still in at least 500 theaters, and there's a lot of movies still in 500 theaters. Actually, there's still like 15 movies still in 500. Maybe I'll make it like 1,000 theaters. I don't know. But if I were to do a power ranking right now, we look at what's still playing in at least 1,000 theaters. Okay. Well, Avatar: The Way of Water is out of it because it's below 1,000. It's in 935 theaters. So I would say right now, the number 1 best film in theaters, number 1 of the power ranking top 5, I would say John Wick Chapter 4. Next, I would say, even though it's not on this list here, I would say Dungeons and Dragons is number 2. Dungeons and Dragons comes in number 2 on my list. Number 3 on my power ranking would be Creed 3. Number 4 on my power ranking would be Scream 6. And number 5 on my power ranking, Puss in Boots. You know what? I changed that. Number 3 is Creed 3. Number 4 would be Puss in Boots, which is still apparently playing in 1,300 theaters. Whatever. So I put that in my number 3. My number 4 would be Scream 6, and my number 5 would be Shazam: Fury of the Gods. That would be my top 5 power ranking. So yes, I am thinking I'm going to bring back that top 5 power ranking segment to probably do on Mondays. So anyway, so there you go, Chad. Great minds think alike, my friend. All right. Next up, we've got YouButStronger writes, thoughts on this Daredevil theory. The reason Karen and Foggy aren't in Born Again is because the whole series is set in 2020 and they're blipped. This series will be about the blips effect on New York, kind of like the original Daredevil showed the aftermath of the Avengers. I mean, that is a theory I've talked about on the show. I mean, because we did see, for those of you who don't know why this theory is out there, there was a set photo taken where you see Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox, walking down the street, and he passes in front of a church, and there's a date on the church sign. And that date says 2020. So, does that mean the church just never changed its sign? Maybe. Does it mean that that scene takes place during the blip? Maybe. Does it mean the entire series takes place during the blip? Maybe. There's a lot of possibilities out there. I hope the entire series doesn't take place during the blip because we need to move past that. I mean, they've done enough stuff about the blip. We need to move forward, right? My guess is that it's a flashback. Anyway, let's get to the theory as a whole, though, because we all know it's come out that neither Karen nor Foggy are going to be in the series, or at least not the actors who played them are going to be in the series. That much we know. Now, maybe they're not in the series, the theory goes, because maybe the entire series takes place during the blip and they got blipped. Okay, maybe. However, that doesn't explain a few other things. It doesn't explain a number of the comments that Charlie Cox has made about this season. And it also doesn't explain the fact that we have a completely different actress playing Vanessa now. So even if that addresses the issues of Karen and Foggy, it still leaves a number of questions unanswered. But hey, listen, we still got a ways to go, and that very well could be what's happening. I don't think it is, but it's possible. I just don't think it is. All right. Thanks for that, YouButStronger. Next up, Bernie Paraflox writes, Blockbuster's supposed comeback idea. Now Netflix used to have the ability to group watch everything on Netflix. It was freaking awesome. You had even a mode to stream from a virtual theater while chatting with all guests. Disney had something similar. I remember that. Does Netflix not have that anymore, you guys? I know there's like a 10-second delay, but for you guys in the live chat, does Netflix not have that ability anymore to like have a group watch? That was great because they kind of came out with that during the pandemic. When everybody was quarantining and staying at home, they made this ability where you could all watch a movie together from your computer and you can chat in the live chat with each other. It was really, really cool. Did they stop that? Blake Keylor is saying in the live chat, I think Netflix Party still exists. The Disney Plus one does. Okay, yeah, these are great features. So, I mean, Blockbuster could do something similar, but Netflix and Disney Plus still already have those, I believe. So that would be kind of redundant. So they would need something new. All right, thanks for that, Bernie. Next up. By the way, Bernie, good to hear from you, man. All right, Luke1234 writes, my favorite film is 1987's RoboCop, but one thing I wish Peter Weller did was show a little more fear in his face when surrounded by the gang and not so stoic. Any small acting choices you wish were done in your favorite Star Wars films? Oh, dude, come on. I mean, listen, the actors, even Peter Weller, the actors and the director decide what would this character do. And then they try to play it the way they believe the character would play it. And if that's how they felt it would play it, that's how they thought it would play it. But, oh my God, come on. Listen, to me, Star Wars is life. I'm like Danny Rojas and Ted Lasso. Football is life. Star Wars is life. But let's not pretend that Star Wars has always had the greatest acting in the world. But I was going to Tashi Station to get some power converters. I hate sand. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Star Wars does not necessarily have a reputation for having the strongest acting performances. And a lot of that had to do with George Lucas, who notoriously did not like working with actors. George Lucas once told Ron Howard, the great Ron Howard, George Lucas directed Ron Howard in his film American Graffiti and has known him his whole life. Now, Ron Howard's daughter, Bryce Dallas Howard, is like one of the, I believe, upcoming stars in the world of Star Wars as a director. I love what Bryce Dallas Howard has done with her Star Wars episodes that she's directed. But anyway, one time when Ron Howard said to George Lucas that he was thinking about going to USC Film School, and Ron Howard tells a story, and George said to him, get into animation. Animation is the way to go because you don't have to deal with actors. Meanwhile, Ron Howard's like, you do realize I'm an actor in your movie, right? You totally know you just completely dogged me, right? You just totally slammed me and you don't even realize it. Yeah, so, I mean, George, fix it in post George Lucas. Not the strongest ones in that. So yes, there are many places in my all-time favorite thing, Star Wars, where I really do wish there were some different performance choices that were made by listen, even the great Harrison Ford. I mean, I think the only actor that I have no qualms with any scene they've ever done would be the late, great Alec Guinness. That's it. I mean, he played Obi-Wan to perfection. And Ewan McGregor does a great job playing Obi-Wan too. But I mean, that's the only one that I don't have any notes for. Everybody else, I think there would be at least one note or two somewhere along the lines. All right. Thanks a lot for that, Luke. Next up, we got Matthew Grant, who writes, you were talking about beautiful cinematography with Hero and John Wick 4. Yeah, the gorgeous. Hero, I think, might be the best cinematography in any movie ever. It's an old Jet Li movie. Absolutely every frame of that movie is a work of art. And John Wick 4 is incredibly gorgeous too. Anyway, one film I had super gorgeous right up there with those is Alpha. I think you just meant, I think you mean ALPHA. Anyway, with Cody Smith-McPhee, beautifully shot movie. That is, it's not a great movie. It's kind of a prehistoric movie about an early age tribe of man. A young boy gets separated from his tribe. Him and a wolf become BFFs. Anyway, it's not a great movie, but it is very, very pretty. It's a very pretty movie. And so I think I agree with you on that one, Matt. Well said. All right, next up. Matthew Grant also writes, Alpha, not Alpha. Oh, they see you got it. Sorry, it's late and I'm tired and I can't type. So here, have an extra $5 for my typo. Just want people to find the right film. Good. That's very good of you. Didn't need to do that, Matthew, but thank you so much for the support, man. All right. Next up, we got Christopher Rosado. Christopher Rosado writes, hey, John. Have you heard of the Apple TV show called Schmigadoon? I have. I watched the first season. It's a show about a couple who gets trapped in a golden era musical. If not, I definitely recommend it, as season 2 is coming out on April 5th and will go into the next era of musicals. I liked Schmigadoon. It's got Keegan-Michael Key is one of the stars of it, and one of the girls from Saturday Night Live alum, and I'm freezing on her name. It's very creative. It's very creative. It's very different from anything that I've watched before. I love Keegan-Michael Key, man. I love Keegan-Michael Key. I remember thinking, I wonder if I'll enjoy Keegan-Michael Key or Jordan Peele as much if they're not together. And I still prefer Key and Peele together. I still go down YouTube rabbit holes watching old sketches of them. I'll go so far as to say this. They're funnier than Dave Chappelle. I thought Key and Peele was funnier than Dave Chappelle. And I love the Dave Chappelle show. But I thought Key and Peele was even better. I said, bitch. I mean, their stuff, God, their stuff was funny. Their stuff was so damn funny. Oh my God. Now, while I still prefer them together, I have really, really enjoyed Keegan-Michael Key. I like everything from, he had a small recurring role every once in a while on Parks and Rec for a while, to just anything he pops up in. I just enjoy watching him, and I think he's great. Okay, next up. We've got a Silly Goose writes, haven't written into the show in a while, but I watch every show. Well, thank you for that, Silly Goose. I'm taking my mom to see the extended Return of the King on April 13th, and we're both beyond excited. She's never seen the extended cut, and it's exciting and is excited to see it on the big screen. Thanks. I'll tell you what, I am actually, whenever I'm in the minority, whenever the question comes up about original theatrical release or extended release of the Lord of the Rings films, I'm in the minority. I'm actually a theatrical release guy. Don't get me wrong. Like, I like going in and seeing the extended stuff just to see all the extra stuff. Absolutely I do, because I love Lord of the Rings. But I don't know, there's something about and it's weird to say this about a 3+ hour movie, but the tightness of the theatrical released films, right? Those just do it for me. But I have never seen the extended release in theaters. And I am going to get my ass down there to watch that too, man. Because I agree with you. It's got to be experienced on the big screen. There's a lot of footage in there I've never seen on the big screen. This might be my last chance to see something like this on the big screen. So I'm going to try to get out there and see that too, Silly Goose. And I hope you and your mom have a fabulous time, man. Some of my favorite movie-going experiences are going with my mom. All right. Next up, Garden Variety Vagabond writes, Once again, Superman and Lois stepped up their writing on the interpersonal level. I have not been watching Superman and Lois, but I do plan on getting back on it and trying it. Now, I kind of ditched it because it looked like when they brought in a certain character that they were retying Superman and Lois into the Arrowverse stuff, and I hated that iteration of Superman. But then I've had a bunch of you guys write to tell me, John, if you keep watching the show, they definitively separate Superman and Lois from what was the Arrowverse. This is definitively a different character. That got me excited, and everybody says it's been really good, so I'm going to jump back on it. I got to get through a few more things first, but I'm definitely going to jump back on that at some point here. All right. Next up, James writes, with Bo-Katan mentioning her dad twice so far, over under 40%, we will be getting a flashback with her dad, and or Satine later this season. Over under 3%, we get a flashback to the last Mandalorian Civil War when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon were assigned to protect the sisters. I'm actually going to go under on both of those. Here's the thing. Listen, this season of Mandalorian so far has been my least favorite. I haven't. That's not me saying I don't like it. I'm just saying it's my least of the favorite of the three so far. And while there has definitely been a number of things this season that I've very much enjoyed, I think one of the things that really frustrates me about the season so far is that going into the season, we all kind of knew, it's like, well, this season is going to kind of focus on retaking Mandalore, right? Well, here we are now past the midpoint of the season. We've only got, help me out here, guys. How many episodes are this season? Is it 9? I can't remember exactly. Is it 9? Or is it, I think it's 9. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's 9. Oh, it's only 8. Michael Gonzalez is saying 8. I thought it was 9 this year, but you guys are saying 8. Okay, so we are well past the halfway point. If it is 8, we're well past the halfway point. 3 episodes left. And only at the end of episode 5 do they finally kind of bring up the idea of, oh, maybe we retake Mandalore. It's like, what have we been doing? What was that whole story arc at the beginning about, I can't possibly go to Mandalore and swim in the living waters to redeem myself unless I have IG-88. Remember that? Like the first couple episodes all revolved completely around the fact that he absolutely had to have IG-88 to be able to go back to Mandalore, that he may scout it out and go and find the living waters, bathe in the living waters so he may be redeemed. This is the way. Remember that? Entire couple episodes. Turns out he just had to run in Tatooine Girl again, because you always have to go back to Tatooine apparently, and go, no, I don't got any IG-11 or IG-88 or IG-99 or whatever. I got none of those. Take this robot. This random, I mean, obviously we know R5, but this random, just take him. And Mando's just like, oh, okay. Like, what happened to, it's 100% imperative that it can only be IG-11. He's my friend. Really? You want him back because he's your friend? How come you waited this many years to rebuild him, and now you're only trying to rebuild him because you need something from him? But oh no, I need him back. He's my friend. And anyway, that all leading to the part that we got through episode 5, and only at the end of episode 5 do they actually kind of say maybe what the season's about. And that, yeah, man, it's been a little bit frustrating that way. Now, that being said, there has been some tremendously fun stuff in it, and I have enjoyed watching it, but I really hope they really nail it with these final 3 episodes, man. I really, really hope they do. All right. Next up, we got Ray Alvarez, who writes, hey, John and gang. So with Beck taking Grogu to some friends in a Naboo ship, maybe the Jar Jar angle isn't so bad. What better redemption arc and cathartic release than Ahmed Best looking Jar Jar in the face and embracing him in front of all of us? Look, there is absolutely something very poetic about that. Like, I loved that we got to see Ahmed Best come back to Star Wars. Because as much as I hate the Jar Jar Binks character, how Ahmed Best, the actor, was treated is nothing short of an embarrassment on Star Wars fandom. Like, how he was treated is despicable. Because he's just an actor playing a role. right? Yeah, I hated the character. It had nothing to do with Ahmed Best. Ahmed Best was an actor who showed up, got instructions from the director, and then did the best he could to manifest those instructions that the director gave him. And suddenly he's the bad guy. I mean, anyway, so I loved seeing that Ahmed Best was back. Loved it. Made my heart smile, man. I don't want to see Jar Jar. And I don't know that there's anything cathartic there to have. If anything, I almost think like bringing in Jar Jar at this point is just going to reopen the debate and reopen the arguing and reopen the nasty taste in one's mouth about Jar Jar, but they very well could. Jar Jar was, at that time, he was the acting senator of Naboo. He would have access to official Nabooian ships. It's possible. Now listen, I'm sitting here telling you, I hate the idea. I hate the idea that Beck gets there and it's Ahmed Best looking at Jar Jar. I hate that idea. But that doesn't mean they couldn't potentially find a way to make it really work. And so we'll see. I hate the idea. That doesn't mean it won't work though. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But God, I don't want them. I don't want to see Meets a Jar Jar Binks. I don't want to see that. Oh my God, I don't want to see that. Me's a shit all over your show. Anyway. All right. Luis writes, hey all, saw in person the Canucks beat the Blackhawks 4-2. No sport is better live than hockey. And it was my third live game. Should high-profile movies start casting actors in advance to fill those roles in case of scandals, deaths, or accusations that may affect their long-term plans for the movie? No. I'll tell you. So what you're basically talking about, like, here's a great example. Recently at a UFC, there was a big welterweight title fight, and every once in a while, two fighters going into a big main event at a UFC, last second somebody gets injured. Because, I mean, these fighters train hard. They get injured sometimes, right? So what the UFC started doing a while ago is they started having another fighter all ready to go, make weight, sign the contract, that in case one of the two main fighters goes down, the main event can still happen because they've got another fighter ready that can just step in last second and they have them ready to go, right? In the case of the welterweight title, they had Colby Covington, a guy who has no business getting a title shot right now because he's lost like 2 of his last 3 fights, but whatever. But they had him on deck, had him make weight, had him get him trained. They signed that so he would be the fill-in alternate just in case the main guy goes down or one of the 2 main guys goes down, right? So what do you do about actors? Well, I mean, like right now we got this Jonathan Majors situation going on, which is actually becoming a little bit more cloudy as we go. We'll talk about it on the John Campea Show on Monday. So what do you do? What you cannot do is sign another actor because you're asking another number one, you're going to have to pay that actor full pay, whether they're in the movie or not. That's going to kill your budget. Number 2, the actor, you're asking an actor to keep their calendar open for 4 to 5 months for a role they may or may not play. You can't do that. And the reality is, it does not take that long to go out and recast if you make the decision to recast. Like, making the decision to recast takes a lot longer than just picking who you want next. Because listen, when you go through the casting process, you know who your number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 picks were. You know who they were. And so once you make the decision to recast for whatever reason, you just start making calls in those orders, see who's available, and you go down your list until you get there. So no, I don't think they should sign a backup actor. Number one, just from a logistics point of view, it just doesn't work. And then financially, it just doesn't work either. So no, and because it really doesn't take all that time, doesn't take all that much time to recast. It takes much longer to come to the decision to recast. Anyway, it's a good question, Luis. All right, next up. We got James Dunn, who writes, Enemy of the State. Ooh, that's going back. Some Will Smith and Gene Hackman was in that. You know what? That wasn't a bad movie. Anyway, Enemy of the State doesn't get talked about as one of the really fun action thrillers. I loved Will Smith and Gene Hackman's. The end Mexican standoff between John Voight and Tom Sizemore was tense. I missed Tony Scott's directing style. You know what? For me, I think that was the first movie for Will Smith that I looked at and went, maybe my timing is wrong and I'm not remembering it in the right order, but I think that was the first movie I saw Will Smith in that I went, you know what? Maybe this guy legitimately could be a movie star. Because I like that movie. And you're right, James. It does not get talked. Now, I don't think it's one of the all-time greats of the, the thriller, spy thriller, espionage thriller kind of movie genre. I don't think it's like one of the all-time great ones. I don't think it's one of the model movies of that. But it should get talked about more because I think that's a fine little film. I'm glad you brought it up, man. All right. Next up. James writes, over under 44%, we get Cisco or Janeway and Picard this year. I'd go over 44% on Janeway just because she was actually mentioned. Cisco, much less likely because of the way Deep Space Nine ended, the whole emissary thing and all that kind of stuff. But Picard straight up mentions Admiral Janeway. So I'll go not 80%, but I'll go over 44% that maybe we get a Janeway appearance. All right. Next up, Matt Mardigan, I like that name, writes, 5 years ago, you debated if John Wick was the best action franchise. Would love to hear you debate anew now that Chapter 4 is out. Mission Impossible, The Raid, Bond, Bourne, Indiana Jones, Ip Man, Ong Bak. Question is for you. What do you think? That's a good question. I remember back in the day, we debated and discussed after John Wick 3, we sat there and was like, is this the greatest action franchise? Now, I don't think any of the John Wick movies are contend to be the greatest action film of all time. But as a franchise, as a pure franchise, could it be argued that it's the greatest action? Now, I would actually not put Indiana Jones in that category. To me, Indiana Jones is more of an adventure. I classify that more as an adventure franchise, more than it is an action franchise. I do believe there's a distinction between adventure and action. So I wouldn't put Indiana Jones in that list. Ong Bak, it was great, but listen, I loved Ong Bak. Tony Jaa was the frickin' man back in the day. But the story of Ong Bak was always pretty weak. Like, we just watched it for the pure action of it. I think to be a great action movie, there's two parts there. An action movie, you got to have great action. And I think you also need to be a great movie. Because you can just get a bunch of stuntmen to do one 90-minute long prolonged fight scene, but that doesn't make a good movie. So, Ip Man was pretty good. The Raid, I never thought they were the strongest stories, but just mind-blowing action. A friend of mine is a producer on the Raid movies. Bond, it's a mixed bag. You have some great action. You have some great movies. Some of the movies aren't so great. Listen, I'm not willing to sit here right now and say that the John Wick franchise is the greatest action franchise of all time. But I will right now say it has to be considered in the discussion and seriously considered. And I think I need to take more time to think about it. But if it's not number one, it's number 2 or 3. If it's not number 1, it's number 2 or 3. Because I think you go into the John Wick movies, the whole mythology of the John Wick franchise to me is fascinating. With the Continental and the marks and the high table and that entire world, that entire mythology that they create around that world, to me is absolutely fascinating. And so to me, they're not only great action, they're good movies. This Baba Yaga who gave it all up for the love of a woman, and then the woman dies and he feels lost and and now all he wants is peace. It's a great story. Now, I'm not saying the John Wick movies are, Martin Scorsese and they're not Shakespeare, but I think at their core, they're really good stories too. So it's got to be right up there. It's got to be right up there, Matt. All right. Next up, Alan Gonzalez writes, why doesn't Marvel or other studios have their own VFX departments? Mostly because it would be ridiculously too expensive. It's a lot more cost effective to subcontract it out. It's a lot more cost effective to subcontract it out because other companies already have their employees, their infrastructures, their workflows, everything, their pipelines, all that kind of stuff is just sitting there ready to go. And then you get to tell all these visual effects studios, hey, we need the effects on these shots done. Who's the lowest bidder? Who's the lowest bidder? And then whichever of these visual effects company, given the cheapest, lowest bid, Disney goes, congratulations, you win those effect shots. You get to make those. And that lowest bid is going to be less than what it would have cost Disney to have their own visual effects army of people. Something like it's just not cost thing. It's way, way, way more economically feasible for them just to contract that work out, which is part of the reason why there's such a systemic problem right now in the world of visual effects. The whole system of it is causing a lot of problems. The work goes to the lowest bidder. So the bidders are making their margins as low as possible. The problem is they're putting out bids that are so low that they got to work their staffs 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, working around the clock on these insane things to try to crunch and crunch and crunch. So they put in these low bids and they end up losing money, which is why the big infamous, the well-known situation with Rhythm and Hues, the iconic visual effects company, they won an Academy Award for Life of Pi with the tiger, right? That was groundbreaking. And you know what that success did? That success drove them out of business. That movie crippled them because they were the lowest bidder, but that lowest bid put them in a position where the demands of it was just, anyway, the whole system's got to change. They've got to come up with a way to change the system. And that's going to be the topic of probably one of our editorial explainer videos that we've been doing recently. That's going to be a topic one of these days because that whole system's got to change. But anyway, Alan, it's a great, great question, but that's why they don't do it, because it's way, 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 way cheaper for them just to go, hey, we got these visual effects shots and you'd be done. Who's going to be the lowest bidder? And it just saves them tons of money that way. All right. Alan Gonzalez writes, hello, John and crew. I was thinking maybe the Marvel movies have been good, but after Endgame, maybe our expectations for movies went up so much because if Quantumania would have come out in 2009, we probably would have loved it. I don't know. I don't agree. You know why? Because there have been great things that Marvel has done since Endgame. Spider-Man Far From Home was wonderful. Or No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home was wonderful. Shang-Chi is magnificent. WandaVision is fantastic. Ms. Marvel is unbelievable. They have done really good things. And we've acknowledged they're really good when the really good things happen. It's because if it was just a matter of, Endgame made all... By the way, Endgame is not the best Marvel movie. It's the most successful, but it's not the best Marvel movie. But if the case was that Endgame was just so good that it's made everything else look bad in comparison, well, then we wouldn't have liked Shang-Chi, and we wouldn't have liked Spider-Man No Way Home, and we wouldn't have liked WandaVision, and we wouldn't have liked, on and on. But we did. We, at least I and people I know, loved those things. So no, it's not that. It's just that She-Hulk wasn't good. It wasn't funny. It's just that Moon Knight wasn't good. It certainly had some great episodes, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't all that good. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is just not that good. Of course, it's all subjective. You may have loved Moon Knight, and you may have loved She-Hulk, and you may have loved Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and that's awesome. That's the beautiful thing about movies, man, is that it can hit us all in different ways. But for me, as one singular isolated film fan, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is just not good. It's not garbage. Like, I don't think, oh my God, I'll never watch that piece of trash again. No, but it wasn't good to me. And so it's no. If every single thing that has come out of Marvel after Endgame was stuff that we all said, well, that's not very good, that's not very good, that's not very good, then maybe we could have a conversation about maybe Endgame just adjusted our expectations. But the fact of the matter is there has been some fantastic stuff that's come out of Marvel in the meantime. It's just that a lot of stuff that has not lived up to their standards has also come out, which is why I've kind of said they've lost that magic of every single thing coming out being a killer. That's gone. Now it's 50-50. When a new Marvel thing comes out, I don't see, that's the thing. I'm no longer at a point that I can go into a Marvel movie just expecting that it's going to be awesome. Because for 10 plus years, that's what it was. We'd go in and watch a movie and maybe once in a blue moon, something would come out like an Iron Man 2 or something that wasn't very good. Okay, whatever. But for the most part, we would go into Marvel movies for like over a decade of knowing that we were going to have a banger time. Knowing it. That's not the way it is anymore. Now it's, I hope this one's good. And maybe we'll get a Shang-Chi, or maybe we'll get a She-Hulk. I mean, we just don't know. It's now a coin toss, just like everybody else. Every other movie studio is the same way. Like you go into a movie and hey, maybe we'll like it, maybe we won't. But Marvel didn't used to be that. Marvel used to be, we just knew it was going to be a banger time. And now we don't. Listen, I got all the faith in the world in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. It's James Gunn. You guys know I'm a James Gunn fanboy. So I got all the faith in the world in that movie. But the reality is, I wouldn't bet $100 that I know I'm going to love the movie. I don't know. Because lately, Marvel's been 50-50, just like everybody else. So I don't know. We'll see. But no, I don't think... It's a very valid question to bring up, Alan, but I don't think adjusted expectations as a result of Endgame is the result of it. I just think their quality is lowered in general. Some stuff is still great, but more stuff isn't. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, Alan. Okay, next up. We got Stephen Dillon Routers who writes, hey, John, hope you had a pleasant vacation. I had a wonderful vacation. Thank you. Sorry about my chat earlier where I said PayPal takes a large cut. Oh, that was a private stuff. That's no big deal. Apparently it's only a 5% upcharge. No big deal. Anyway, looking forward to supporting you through Stream Elements as well as in the future. So what Stephen is talking about, we had, I can't remember if it was in a live chat or if it was offline. I can't remember what it was, but there was basically a question of like, how much does like say PayPal? Because when you send in a tip for your question at streamelements.com/John Campea/tip, when you do that, PayPal keeps a percentage. And I believe that percentage is somewhere between 3 to 5%. YouTube, when we do super chats, keeps 30%, 30. So it's actually more advantageous. Like more money gets from where you're trying to send it and actually ending up to where you're sending it. More of that money gets there when we use Stream Elements as opposed to when we use YouTube Super Chats. But again, YouTube Super Chats come in super handy, are really the right tool to use sometimes. And sometimes using the tip link, letting people send in tips anytime 24/7, even when they're not watching the show live, sometimes that is the more advantageous thing to do. So it's been one that we've gone back and forth on and wrestled with over the last, couple of years, actually. So something that we always have to take into consideration. All right. Thanks for that, Stefan. All right. And our last question today. Stephen Dillon Routers, or at least from coming in from the tip link, Stephen Dillon Routers writes, did you see the trailer for Elemental and Asteroid City this week? Both look great to me. Any thoughts? I thought the Elemental trailer was great. I'm not sure about the Asteroid City one. I get it. It's West, but here's the thing. I'm very interested in watching this because of the names attached to it. Wes Anderson, the whole cast, obviously it's a Wes Anderson film, looks great. But if I watch that exact same trailer, but instead of Wes Anderson, it said, Bobby Cannavale making his directorial debut, and it was a bunch of actors that I didn't recognize, but it was still the exact same trailer. I don't know that I would have been interested in the trailer. because the name Wes Anderson's on it, that has my attention. Because Tom Hanks is in it, that has my attention. Because Jason Schwartzman's in there, who's like in everything Wes Anderson these days, has my attention. But really, if I'm judging the trailer for Asteroid City completely on its own merits, and say, instead of saying directed by Wes Anderson, it's directed by Bobby Cannavale, or it's directed by, Gu Papo Ming Sha Papa Shango. Okay, some guy I've never heard of. I don't know that I would say that this trailer looked at all interesting. It's interesting because it's Wes Anderson, but the trailer on its own merits, I honestly don't know if I think it's that great of a trailer. I really don't. I completely believe that it's a Wes Anderson film, so I'm probably really going to enjoy it. But if we're just talking about the trailer, I don't know that the trailer was actually that good. But that's just me. That's just kind of my take on it. The Elemental trailer, I was smiling and grinning through the whole thing. You know what it felt like to me? It felt like classic Pixar. It felt like, 2013 to 2018 kind of Pixar. It had that wonderment to it. I'm not sitting here saying Elemental is going to be one of the top 3 Pixar movies ever. I'm not saying that, but the trailer delighted me. I was smiling through the whole thing. I just think that movie's going to be really good, man. I think it's going to be really good. All right, guys. Now, that was not the last tip question we had in. Some of you guys sent in tip questions after Stefan did, but don't worry, we will get to those on Monday on the John Campea Show. We'll pick up where we left off with Stefan. So if you sent in a question in the last couple of hours, don't worry, we're going to probably lead off the John Campea Show once we get to the questions part with those questions. So what we're going to do right now, guys, is we're going to take just a quick little 1-minute break and thank one of the sponsors of our channel here. And while we're going to do that, I'm also going to open up the super chats. If you guys are watching live, we'll now get some questions from you guys who are actually here right now watching live. And I'll just leave it open for a minute or two because we only have time for a couple because I got to get to my wife's birthday party. Yeah, we'll go from there. So I'm going to open up the super chats right now. Let me do that. And yes, the super chats are now open and we're going to take a minute and thank the main sponsor of the John Campea Show, Ryan Reynolds and his incredible company. Yes, it's still his for now. Our friends at Mint Mobile. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. If saving more and spending less is one of your top goals for 2023, why are you still paying insane amounts of money every month for your phone bill? Switching to Mint Mobile is the easiest way to save this year. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know I made the switch over to Mint Mobile a while ago. The process couldn't have been easier, and I can't believe that I am spending less than a third of what I was spending on one of the other major carriers before. By going online only and eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and switch easily in minutes with eSIM. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show. By the way, a bunch of people have been asking me about if Mint Mobile was still sponsor of the show now that because you guys probably saw the news, right? T-Mobile is going to be buying Mint Mobile. Now, this actually isn't that big of a deal because Mint Mobile, for those of you who don't know, Mint Mobile actually used T-Mobile. Mint Mobile actually used T-Mobile's network. Like Mint Mobile didn't have its own nationwide infrastructure of cell phone towers and networks, stuff like that. They actually used the T-Mobile infrastructure. So them being bought out by T-Mobile is actually a pretty good marriage. So apparently Ryan Reynolds is going to be staying on with the company. So he's still going to be involved in all that kind of stuff. And so a lot of people were asking me is Mint Mobile still going to be a sponsor of the show? Yeah, actually, Mint Mobile, whoever owns them, Mint Mobile had signed a deal with us to be our sponsors for all of 2023, which was completely unheard of and absolutely unbelievable, especially when you consider the fact that they were like our major sponsor for 2022 as well. And normally sponsorships don't last that long. So the very fact that they signed up with us through 2023 was a very, very shocking but pleasant surprise. Yeah, they'll still be our sponsors going through that. All right, let's get over now and start getting the questions that you guys have been sending in live. So we're going to start things off here with Virtuoso just sends in a super chat badge to be supportive. Thank you so much, man. Eddie Vedder's stunt double sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Eddie. And he writes, to this day, I'm still sad we never got a Dredd sequel. Me too, man. Karl Urban was great in that. I understand why we didn't. It bombed at the box office, but holy crap, was that movie awesome. Karl Urban did so much for a guy who had a helmet on the entire movie. I completely agree. And you know what? I was there. I actually was the moderator of the very first public screening of Dredd. And I was there. Karl Urban was my guest on my Masters of the Web panel at Comic-Con that year. And so he came in and was my guest on my panel. And then that night I got to be there and be the host and the moderator for the first screening of the film. I got to interview the cast and all that kind of stuff afterwards. And I loved that movie. And I was so afraid I was going to hate it. And yeah, man, look, it's just one of those really unfortunate realities. They put out that movie. It was so freaking good, but nobody went to go see it. As a matter of fact, if I look up the box office here, let me just look this up. If I look up Dredd, what comes up here? Okay, Karl Urban's Dredd made, are you ready for this? $41 million in total. Not $41 million opening weekend, like what Dungeons & Dragons is about to have. Not $41 million domestically. It made $41 million in total worldwide. It's just, who are you going to convince to put up the money to make the sequel? It doesn't matter how good that one was, because that movie's great, but you're never going to convince anybody to put up the money to make it, because they're going to look and say, how much did the first one make? 41 million? Yeah, no, you're not going to get my $80 million to make and market a new movie. No way. It really sucks. And I agree, man. I agree. I would have loved to see another one. All right. Stephen Routers writes, happy birthday to Ann. Thank you so much, man. I will pass that along. Zachary Zarvos writes, welcome back, John. Thank you so much. I was having campy withdrawals. Did you get a chance to go to WonderCon? No, I didn't go to WonderCon. We had a lot of things planned this weekend. Ann and I spent a lot of time camping this weekend, and then we just did a bunch of other things together. The best part about my vacation this week was that I just got to spend a lot of really good time with Ann. Because listen, Ann is a superstar. She's just a superstar. And let me see if I can bring up something here. But on top of being a superstar, she is vice president of her company. And on top of being vice president of her company, she is also, I think you guys know, my wife has 4 degrees. She has 2 bachelor degrees and 2 master's degrees. And she is now taking her doctoral program at USC. So on top of the 4 degrees, she's going for her 5th degree now, her actual doctorate. My wife is pretty amazing. She's the best part of my life. She's the best thing in my life. She's the dungeon master of our Dungeons and Dragons group. She is one of the best cosplayers I know. She practices mixed martial arts with me. She was genetically designed. She was genetically designed by God to be like my perfect partner, my absolute perfect partner. And you gotta forgive me. Like I can gush about Ann a lot when I start going on it. I can gush about her a lot. But yes, it's her birthday. Tomorrow is officially her birthday. And guys, How many of us are lucky enough to have wives that when you ask them, baby, what do you want for your birthday? And they look at you and say, listen to me. I want you to listen closely. I want WrestleMania tickets. How many guys have a wife that will look at them and say, I want WrestleMania tickets? That's the wife I have. And the type of wife, listen to me. This is a real conversation I had with my wife. Like my wife and I were camping the other weekend when a UFC was on, right? And I'm like, hey, do you want to go camping this weekend? We said we're going to go camping. She was, yeah, we can go camping this weekend, but make sure there's a sports bar somewhere within a 45-minute drive so we can go and watch the UFC. I'm like, I love you. I love you so much. I can't even put it into words. Anyway, yes. Yeah, so much so, Cash pointed out that when my wife says to me, hey, I want us to go see the Jonas Brothers, you know what I do? I say yes. I say, yep, no problem, baby. Let's go to see Jonas Brothers. I'm going to see if I can find something here of us at the Jonas. Oh, yeah, there it is. We were at the Jonas Brothers concert. Oh, you know what? Maybe I don't want to show that picture. But yeah, I would like, yeah, that's how much I love my wife, man. When she says, I want you to come to a Jonas Brothers concert with me. I'm like, okay, baby, you got it. Let's go. And away we would go. Sorry, I'm just looking at some of my favorite pictures of Anne now. Just because Anne's my favorite. And for my friends who are football fans, how many of us have a wife that says, hey, you know what I think we should do? I think we should get Rams seasons tickets. How many guys would kill to have a wife say to them, I think we should get seasons tickets for an NFL team? We didn't because they're super expensive. But, you know, the very fact that I have a wife that would say to me, let's get some seasons tickets to the Rams makes me go, hell yeah. In the game of life, ladies and gentlemen, in the game of life, there's no around it. I won. I won the game of life. I really did. And the great thing about the game of life is unlike other games where you have to have a winner and a loser, everybody can win in the game of life. That's the beautiful thing about the game of life, man. Everybody can win. One person winning doesn't require somebody else to lose. But I happen to be one of those lucky guys that I won in the day of life. The game of life, I should say. Anyway, so sorry. Once I start spewing on about my amazing wife, I keep going. Okay. Zachary Zarvros writes, welcome back, John. I was having campy withdrawals. Oh, sorry. We already did that about WonderCon. There we go. R. Henry 1980 says, have you seen the second season of Carnival Row? No, I've watched a bit of it though. I was watching a bit of the first two episodes of the second season. My wife Anne really likes Carnival Row. I gotta admit, the first couple of episodes of season 2, I didn't think were great. And Anne, who has kept going with it, she's told me that this season isn't all that great. So yeah, I have not finished it off. I probably won't be able to finish it off either. Okay. Mark 24 Gaming just sends in a super chat badge to be supportive. Thank you, Mark. Eddie Vedder Stunt Double writes in, Daredevil Born Again is my most hyped MCU project, even above any of the Avengers or Fantastic Four. I think it would be for me too, if there weren't so many question marks around it right now. Right? Like, here's the thing. I think there are still a lot of people who think this is just Daredevil season 4. I think there are still the vast majority of people think this is the exact same Matt Murdock. This is the exact same Daredevil as the one who's in the Netflix series. And I'm telling you, I do not think it is. When you take everything that Charlie Cox has said, and you look at all the changes that have been made to things like Kingpin and the story of Kingpin, when you look at the fact that certain key characters aren't there and other characters have just been recast, I think that this is going to be a Daredevil who is exactly like the Daredevil from the Netflix series, but is not the exact Daredevil from the Netflix series. And I think a lot of people are going to be angry and disappointed because they think it's going to be one thing and I don't think it's going to be. And I could be wrong about that, by the way. I could totally be wrong about that. Like Kevin Feige didn't call me and tell me that. That's just me putting the pieces together. So maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. I got no dog in this hunt. I don't care. But I just have a feeling some people are going to be very disappointed just because they're going to find out it's not the same Daredevil. Now, whether the series is good or not, we'll have to wait and see. Okay, I'm having trouble getting this on the screen properly. Anyway, where were we at here? I was at CJ Rebirth writes, did you hear about the new Scott Pilgrim anime? I have not. I love Scott Pilgrim versus the World, by the way. I love that movie. Edgar Wright did a fantastic job with it. Obviously, it's about a Canadian kid. The movie takes place in Toronto. Of course, I love it. But no, seriously, I love that movie. But I did not know they were doing an anime. I'm not a huge anime guy, so I probably won't watch it. But who knows? All right. Young Midoriya writes, hey, John, what are your thoughts on Mr. Nobody in John Wick 4? I absolutely loved him and felt like he is the most spin-off potential in John Wick. There's a character in John Wick 4. I'm not going to go into this because I don't want to spoil anything. The movie just came out this weekend. When you hear Nobody, we are not talking about Nobody from the movie Nobody. Okay? We're not talking about that guy because that guy, it feels like that movie takes place in the world of John Wick. But that's what he's talking about. There's another character called Nobody. Look, I don't want to go into it because I don't want to give it any spoilers for people, but I like the Nobody character. I did. Not as much as most of the other characters, but I like the Nobody character. All right. R. Henry 1980 writes, I know you said it was mature for Peter to not tell MJ and Ned who he was, but the informed version of themselves wouldn't have chose that. Do you think he violated their trust? No, because if you're talking about the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, the problem with that is him just telling them something wouldn't suddenly reawake their knowledge, right? Like if the movie had set up that all Peter had to do was approach them and say, remember, and they'd remember everything. Well, there you go. Then that would have been a problem. But the reality is he would just look and sound like a crazy person if he just went up to them. They had no idea. It says, hey, you and me are actually boyfriend and girlfriend 10 minutes ago. I think that would have just introduced some real problems for them in their life and real problems for him. So I think it played out the way it needed to. I think it played out the way it needed to. Not really sure, but I think that's the way it was. Okay. Let's see here. I lost my spot here. Campea withdraws, Carnival Row, Born Again, new Scott Pilgrim anime, thoughts on John Wick 4, Peter. There we go. Up to Dildar the Glorious writes, I know how you feel about it. Sorry, I don't know how you feel about it, but there's a Scott Pilgrim anime coming and the entire cast from the movie is coming back for it on Netflix. Oh, the original cast is going to be doing the voices of them? You know what? Maybe I will check it out. That's actually kind of interesting. Because I just said a minute ago, I'm not really interested in the Scott Pilgrim anime series, but if you're bringing back all the original cast, I'm curious, does Edgar Wright have anything to do with it? If you tell me Edgar Wright's involved in this, I might be really interested in it. So that's kind of cool. All right. Anyway, let's see. Next up, Johnny writes, for a future episode, ranking of Stanley Kubrick. Man, I don't know. I don't think I ever want to try to rank Stanley Kubrick films. Stanley Kubrick was, I'm trying to think of even a modern thing to compare to Kubrick. I mean, you're talking about, a guy who does like 2001 and does Eyes Wide Shut. I mean, it's just, and that kind of embodies what the body of his filmmaking work was. I don't know that I'd ever want to do that, to be honest with you. All right. A. Marcellus writes, John, hail to our amazing wives. That's right. My wife would ask for her favorite pizza slice and a day of Nintendo. You married well, my friend. You married well. When your partner says, I want nothing more than just to eat some pizza, sit back and play some Nintendo, that means you married well, my friend. Well done. All right. Stephen DeLint Routers writes, have you heard any early reactions from the Super Mario movie? I have not, as a matter of fact. Considering I only ever liked one Illumination movie, I'm on the fence buying tickets. I think I'll wait for reviews first. That's not a bad approach to it. Say, look, I mean, here's the thing. Going to movies as much as they are the best things ever, going to movies is still an investment of time and money. I mean, not the kind of money that you're buying your next laptop with, but going to the movies is still an investment of time and an investment of money. And that is why I believe waiting to see reviews and stuff like that, that is just making yourself an informed consumer. Now, of course, nobody can tell you that you will like a movie or not, but you can ascertain the likelihood that you may like a movie or not. Like, let's say if there's like 5 or 6 critics you really, really like and identify with a lot, and all 5 of them dislike a movie, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll dislike it, but it may tell you that, hey, I usually line up with these critics pretty closely, so while I may like it, the chances aren't great that I'll like it. I'd rather invest my time and money in something else than seeing that particular movie. Like, you would never buy a car without doing some research on the car, right? Whenever we make an investment of time and money, like if you're going to go to Vegas, you don't just book whatever room. You spend a little bit of time. You read some reviews on the hotels, you see what they have to offer, all that kind of stuff. And then you make your best informed decision that you can. And then maybe you'll like the hotel you went to, maybe you won't, but you did a little bit of research. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, Stefan. I think that's a good approach, to be honest with you. Me, I've already got my tickets, so I'm going to go see it immediately. But I have not heard any reactions yet. I am dying to find out. All right. Next up here, we've got Jeff Leaf. Oh, and this is the final question of the day from Jacob Leaf, I should write. And Jacob sent in like a $20 super chat. Thank you, Jacob. He writes, oh, let me just see if this is a, okay. I just wanted to make sure this wasn't a spoiler. Jacob writes, there's a scene in D&D Honor Among Thieves that I would rank with the evil will always triumph because good is dumb in terms of how hard it made me laugh. What a fantastic movie. Look, I don't even know what scene you're talking about, but it is such a fun movie. It is such a fun movie. Dungeons and Dragons, again, let's look at this. 91%. These are John Wick kind of numbers. 91% critic rating, 93% audience rating. It's just such, I mean, that doesn't automatically mean you'll like it. You may not like it when you go to see it, whatever. But I mean, I think the movie's fantastic, guys. I think it's fantastic. And I cannot wait to talk on Monday when we actually get the box office numbers in and we'll see how it does and all that kind of stuff. All right, guys. Well, that'll do it for this installment of Open Mic, our first one back since my little vacation. Guys, thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. I deeply appreciate it. Don't forget, if you guys have questions for the John Campea Show, you do not have to wait until Monday's show starts. You can start sending in questions now, going to streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. Send that on in and we will hear your question right on the show if we deem your question or comment appropriate to be used on our show, of course. And yeah, so listen, it's Saturday. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Hey, I know a bunch of you guys are going to go see Air tonight. I am dying to see Air. I've heard nothing but like Oscar caliber kind of stuff coming about Air. But of course, my wife's birthday party is tonight. So my wife comes before even Ben Affleck in my house. So I got to go do that. So I know a bunch of you guys are going to go see Air. Maybe you guys are wrestling fans. You're going to start watching some WrestleMania today. My wife and I are going to go to WrestleMania tomorrow. I'm going to make a little video of our little experience going down to SoFi Stadium and seeing WrestleMania. I'll put that up on the channel later tomorrow night. And then I will see you guys back on Monday. I look forward to it. Thanks for being here, guys. My name's John Campea. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.